Hello and welcome back to Economics on the Side. My name is James and today we're going to be discussing Chapter 2 of Milton Friedman's flagship book, Capitalism and Freedom, and more specifically his opinions on the role of government in a functioning society. So you have two forms of representation. You have market representation and you have government representation. In the market, each individual is an individual. They can represent themselves, they can spend their money however they choose to do so and buy whatever they want. There's no need for uniformity, they don't need to follow a crowd. As much as they may choose to, they can represent themselves completely. Whereas with government, there has to be some degree of direction and uniformity. You can't have the government individually governing every single person. There has to be some degree of uniformity in which there's a policy and policies that they just apply to everybody. Everyone has to follow the same rules. They can't have individual rules tailored for people or sets of groups of people. So some people, therefore, must be unfairly overruled. And it's necessary. A government has to overrule some people in favor of others so that everyone is subject to the same rules. And this degree of necessary unfairness is why Milton Friedman claims that we need to absolutely reduce the government, the size of the government as much as possible to create a fair society for everybody. So the government's powers not only need to be limited for more fairness, but also because direct democracies can actually lead to tyranny. And this is because without constitutions or markets to hold back democracies can then lead to voting yourselves into unfair situations. And you may say, oh, well, why is it unfair if the majority of people vote for it? Well, if you imagine that under a true democracy, 51% of the people could vote to kill or rob 49% of the people. It's completely democratic, but it may not be fair, it may not be right, but it's possible. And people say, no, this is just theoretical, but we've seen what's happened in countries like in Rwanda, for example. That's quite a recent one. You had an 85% majority ethnicity basically running the country, who then decided to vote for policies to commit a genocide against 15% of the country because they had a majority. Completely democratic. Is it right? Is it fair? Obviously not. But this is why a lot of countries, they'll have constitutions to limit the power and the size of the government to prevent things like this from happening. And Milton Friedman is very much in favour of that, and he's very much in favour of having an open market and a powerful market to roll back the powers of the government to prevent tyranny. There's also an element of fewer collective decisions being made to then create greater social stability. And what I mean by that is that the less that people have to disagree on, the happier they are and the more stable the society is. If people have to constantly host referendums or disagree about things politically, then society is less stable. But if there's more of a market focus on society, people can do what they want and what they choose with their own money. There doesn't need to be instability because people are doing what they want and they have what they want anyway because they're spending their money how they like. So there's more of a degree of stability with smaller government. On top of that, he goes on to say, what should governments do? Because government isn't completely useless. We need government for certain functions. And he defines the government's role as to do things that benefit the market that the market cannot do itself. The government should define the rules of the game. They should choose how it's going to be played, who's not going to break the rules, how the rules are broken. They enforce how society should run and how markets should run most efficiently. They also provide essential services that the market obviously cannot provide. If you think about defense, so military, police, courts, you can't trust private companies to operate these. You can't individually purchase your share of national defense. It just doesn't make sense. So there has to be some degree of government intervention to provide these combined services. On top of that, you have things like infrastructure. Some things just aren't feasible to have people pay for them. For example, paths, pavements, roads, certain parks and fields and things. You can't possibly charge people for access. You can't monitor who's using them. You can't monitor who benefits what from them. You can't possibly collate all of the amounts of charges of pennies that you'd need to allow people to use these services in these areas for it to be efficiently run. So the government has to step in to then almost have some form of monopoly paid for by the taxpayers that is more efficient than if it was owned by a business, because there's no possible way to collect the correct revenue for this from the customers or the people that use it. He goes on to say that there is no solution in complete anarchy. because people are fundamentally corrupted. There needs to be rules. People are imperfect. They will exploit things that they can. So there has to be a followed and agreed upon rule set that all people must adhere to. This is obviously why we have, we have justice systems and whatnot to keep people in line. But at the same time, over-governance can be completely unproductive, because if you force people to follow certain regulations or pay taxes that are unfair, you then reduce economic productivity. So his only ideal solution is to have a minimal government where the government sticks to its only functions that it should do. He wants to ensure that the government is as small as possible to where it can perform its vital functions without being tyrannical, without overstepping the mark. Apologies for that, my camera stopped recording, but we were done anyway, so thank you very much for watching. If you have any thoughts, please do leave them in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, please like, and hopefully see you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.